Good morning, good evening, good night, NBN, Entrepreneurship and Leadership.
Personally, I'm fascinated by the story.
Trust is an underrated weapon in the business landscape.
I'm a really strong believer in learning by doing.
What's the definition of success?
You're trying to come up with an answer to the question. But go ahead, Richard.
You could be right, but you're wrong. Good morning, good evening, good night, Entrepreneurship and Leadership channel listener on the New Books Network. Today, we've got a very special guest, Anna Woodward Kennedy, and I'm recording this together with my co-host, Keeman Fontakidis. So, Anna, firstly, thank you very much for coming onto the show. And rather than me try to introduce you, obviously I've read your profile. Please, could you introduce yourself the way you would if you bumped into someone at a social engagement or a party or even a business networking meeting?
Of course, thanks for having me. So I live in Ireland, in Dublin. I'm a Brazilian person. My father was a first generation British, from British parents. My mother was Brazilian from Portuguese with local indigenous Indians. I've been living in Ireland for 23 years, and the reason I came here was for work, for 1 year, and here I am 23 years later.
Mm-hmm.
I did live also a little bit in the UK. I lived in France, but now I live in Dublin, where I work in Chilistore. I'm married to an Irishman, and I have a little boy, George.
Fantastic. And maybe you should explain what Chilistore is, and perhaps there's a slight need for a sort of declaration of interest, particularly from Keeman, but also from myself, because we are somehow connected. And, you know, if we start raving about how wonderful the company is, people might be suspicious if they didn't know the backstory.
But the company is wonderful, Richard.
It is wonderful.
It is, indeed, and how wonderful. In fact, anyway, could you just remember, a lot of our listeners aren't in the translation industry, so they won't know that.
Yes. So Chilistore is a company specialized in quality assurance for translated software, mostly translated content, websites and software platform as a service. And Chilistore was acquired by Argus Multilingual, a market leader company based in Poland, about 6 months ago. We're not a translation agency, or I like to say we're the translation agency that translates nothing. We are specialized in the quality assurance of and testing of translated software, but we don't do the translation ourselves, which would be a conflict, obviously. There are not many other companies like ourselves, and when I co-founded the company, there wasn't any. There were divisions of other companies doing what we do, but there wasn't one single company that specialized in what we do. I have worked in the translation industry for over 25 years. I started in publishing, but I very soon moved to the translation industry. I have worked in many different roles in the translation industry, which I think it was beneficial. It was a bit of craziness at a point, but I never had a straight line career. I always saw myself as providing a service rather than being employed by someone. So ending up having a company wasn't well, it was a big step. I'm going to say it was easy. It wasn't easy, but it felt like a natural evolution of what I was.
Let's start, Anna, from the beginning, though. First of all, I already learned something. So in full disclosure, I know Anna, obviously, we consummated an acquisition together, so we know each other quite well. But I would like to, so I already learned something that I didn't know about you. I didn't know that your father was from the UK. So you grew up in a sort of a multicultural house in Brazil. But give us the starting point. So what did you tell us how you, you started out in school, and then were you traveling to Europe a lot because your dad was English, or what finally got you, what made you decide, first of all, to actually leave Brazil in the first place? And maybe what did you study at university? Did you go to university where'd you go to university?
In Brazil, yes.
In Brazil, yeah.
Yeah, I think we can even go back further. Because one of the things that I think I learned is that if you want to run a company, you need to know yourself very profoundly and painfully sometimes. And I think your personal history will explain various choices in your life and how do you end up. I find it very interesting, like what are the motivations for someone to be an entrepreneur, because it's not an easy thing. To run a company is also not an easy thing. And I'll be very honest, I grew up on a bit of a dysfunctional family. So my parents were very self-involved and had narcissistic personalities. Both of them, they managed to meet each other. Yeah, which
not a lot of attention for Anna.
And I have to say, Anna, that we've interviewed a lot of people, but it's the first time someone said my parents were dysfunctional and narcissistic, and you know, I think you've already said being self-aware and knowing yourself is something that a lot of people. I know some people are older than Kimon and myself who are yet to discover what they're really like.
Yeah, right?
but it certainly helps in running a business for sure.
It does. You know what I found out is that when you have parents that are very self-involved or very involved into their own relationships, which was the case, so more involved into maybe fighting each other or being the right one than, you know, looking after children, you grow up being a bit hypervigilant. You know, you're alert to small changes in the environment. You're alert to small changes in other people's attentions and moods. Must not upset mother, must not infuriate father. So you can either let this drive you completely insane when you grow up, or you can turn this into a profession, which I think that's what I did,
that's
right?
Quality is about being attentive.
Yes, quality is being very attentive. So I created a company with a mission that's provide good service to its clients, and service being the key word here, and fulfilling their needs and ensuring that the quality is there, it's already there or is added, or the value is added, that the service, the interaction with their customers, that everything is catered to, you know, excellency.
Okay, but if we jump back to the childhood a bit, you mentioned like what sort of, obviously you've already hinted that it might have been quite tough, but what was yours? Did you have siblings who, like brothers and sisters, and at school, was school like a kind of release? Because at least at school there was some order. I mean, how did it look like in terms of the different, because you live in different worlds, you got your friends at school, siblings, your parents.
So yeah, my father was married twice, and my mother's second wife, and he had 4 children on the first marriage, and then 4 children with my mother. I'm obviously the eldest, so I was also the one taking care of younger, smaller children. And at some point I was the adult in the house. So for instance, I was taught how to drive. I was 12, 13. So when I was 13, 14, I could drive to the pharmacy or to the supermarket, or I could drive smaller children to school. One of the good things is my father never served in the army, but we do come from a military family, and I kind of learned a lot of discipline. He was a very disciplined man, and I learned discipline and leadership from a very young age. I mean, I knew that children had to be up, you know, when they were 5 or 6 years old, and I was 10, 11, 12. And I had to get them up, and they had to be up very early. So in Brazil, you go to school very early. You might start at 7 a.m. So you have to be up very early. You have to be ready. And exactly what you said, Richard, I did very well in school. One, because I like the discipline, but I also like to study, and also, you know, through books and learning new things, you do go to a different world than.
Anna, sorry, I have a question. Sorry to interrupt. I do have a question about, I'm trying to understand. Your father was English, but he was in the military? So he
wasn't. No, he wasn't, because he was born in Brazil. He was first generation. He was an only son, and all men must enlist. But in Brazil, if you are an only son, you cannot be drafted. So he did enlist like everybody else, but he could not
so
go.
His father was English.
Yes, his father and his mother, she was Scottish. Yes, and then from his father family, they were all army men.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, but he went into the Brazilian army, is basically as a result.
Yes, he enlisted, but you can't be part of the army if you're an only son. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I understand. They don't want to take, if you only have one let's leave you the one.
If you only have,
basically.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
And he was an only child as well, so you
Yeah.
wouldn't be, yeah.
Okay.
And were you I know you were doing well at school, and that was reading a lot, so like sort of school, so studying in school was a kind of escape from some kind of too much responsibility at home, maybe, and this was an
Yeah.
area where you could just be you rather than part of this thing that sounds
Pretty
quite tough.
much.
But did you imagine, did you have a vision that your future life might involve business and entrepreneurship, or was there any role model, or were there some friends who had like parents who are in business and you thought, that actually looks like a better world? Is there anything you can pick out from back then that gave you a thought, maybe one day I could be doing something like that?
No, and that's one of you discussed in a podcast, I think the podcast with Veronique, right? Her parents were in business. And that's one of the things that I find it very difficult if you're going into business, but you didn't have any parents or anyone in the family in business. You really are braving the wilderness by yourself because you didn't get to learn much. I didn't really. However, I think what's in my personality is this sense of leadership and independence. So even when I was employed by other companies, I also had periods in my life that I was a freelancer or I was a contractor. I think the sense of freedom that being a contractor and being a freelancer to me was way more important and more appealing than the safety of having employment. I always preferred that. Can we go with a contract, not with employment?
What about, another option is like, rather than just having models of parents, because in some of the guests, they didn't have parents, but they themselves, I don't know, they sold stuff. They did little entrepreneurial activities when they were young. For whatever reason, they
sometimes
had
just have money just because they wanted the cash.
Yeah, exactly. Was there anything like
motivation.
that you were you like trying to have a hustle?
Or
like
teaching on the
side.
side.
Hustle, or
maybe
teaching English. Maybe teaching English. Exactly. You must have known pretty good English.
Yeah. No, I did. Yeah, but I think what happened was from very early, I became a freelancer, a translator, and I was successful. So I opened a company, my first company. I was 19, I think, or 20.
Ah, there you go.
Yes, yeah. So, and I thought, I have more work than I can take on, so I better expand. So then I did have people working for me. Still is a freelancer setup, actually, if you have other freelancers working for you, but you didn't incorporate. But I did incorporate because it was easier to manage taxes and do everything by the books and not.
So you were doing this when you were 19?
Questions. Yeah,
you were
so
19.
my first company, I was 19. Yeah.
No way.
And I had it for a while, yeah.
And it was a translation, basically a translation company.
It was translation of books, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and from English into Portuguese.
Into Portuguese, yeah. And the way I moved to technology was I started to work with the For Dummies. Remember that, Windows for Dummies?
Yes.
Oh, Windows for
Microsoft
Dummies.
Works for Dummies. Who can remember
Wow,
that?
was like huge.
Yeah.
Just that whole catalog is enough work for us.
Yeah.
And what happened with that business?
What happened with that business? I kept it open for quite a long time. And then I did get contracts to work in publishing houses. I did get a contract to work in the publishing house in Brazil that was actually got the license for these For Dummies books. And I was there as a translator or a reviewer, I can't really recall. And then in a few months, I was asked, could you manage the team? And there I was, I think I was 22, and I had about 15 people that I was managing. And that also happened. After that, I worked in
But sorry,
PeopleSoft.
I'm confused. What happened to the company?
The company was open because some of these jobs that I had, they were contracts mostly. So I was dealing through the company. And sometimes I didn't use it, but I kept it open. So I kept.
So it's like you had the option of a regular employment contract or like a subcontractor contract. I just wanted to come back to when you set up your first company and doing the first translations. Do you remember your very first client, like how how it felt, because quite often, you know, people's first business or real business is later, and you know, and suppose you hadn't done anything before Chilistore on your own, and the first client then can be quite a thing. But you wouldn't have had that feeling with Chilistore if you had your first client when you were 19, because you'd have had it in a different context. And do you remember who gave you the project and why and how you felt, or did you have the client first and then you set up the company? So it was.
I think I had the client. It was a publishing house.
So how did you get them?
McGraw-Hill.
Yeah, I mean, so McGraw-Hill is a huge international publishing company, and you're a 19-year-old
in Brazil,
in Brazil, and suddenly they find you. How did that happen?
And they found me, and they liked my translations. I think they liked that I was punctual as well. So translating books is painful. It takes quite a long time. And I was punctual, and they kept, every time I went, and I visit them very often to bring the books. At that point, we still printed things, and we brought printed things because those would be annotated by the copy editors, so they would annotate.
But that sounds like, sorry to interrupt, but that sounds like after the project has started, like, but there was a point at which they didn't know you existed, and you presumably didn't know they existed. There must have been a process by which you actually.
Yeah, what Richard is asking, Anna, is the hustle. And I was going to ask the same question. How did you get clients, basically?
Because you come across as a very calm, sorry to talk over you, you come across as like calm and sort of like, and like, obviously there is calmness in business, but you know, at some stage you have to sort of get your foot in the door.
I try to remember. I think I do recall when I got the contracts in the first publishing house. I had someone who was my boss, and she liked me. And I think that when she moved to McGraw-Hill, she contacted me and said, would you like to continue working with me? And this is a story that has repeated in my life, especially. I got a lot of mentorship, and I learned a lot from women. And I did, like, now that you're asking, I did have a lot of women bosses, which was lucky for me, because they did provide a lot of guidance and a lot of mentorship and a lot of encouragement as well. So I once was in a panel, Richard, I think I know where you're getting at. I remember sharing with the panel, it was a Women's Network event, that when you are a girl, you don't get encouraged by your parents. Go be an entrepreneur. You know, they would say, go be a teacher or get married and have babies. So especially at that generation, nobody said, no, of course, you should totally go and be a freelancer or totally go and open your own company. You don't get any of such encouragement. And because I did so well in school, the encouragement was go and work in a lab or, you know, be an academic. That was, at least my mother's dream for me, was be an academic, go and study all your life. So I think the encouragement and the push, as you're saying, was really from this boss, this woman. And I think what helped was that I worked very hard. I always worked very hard, and I'm not saying that everybody should, because I think we need also to encourage people to rest nowadays. I think people are working too hard to a point where most people seem to feel that they're burned out. But I think I worked very hard, and that helped. So I made up for luck by working very hard. Some people are very lucky. Some people are very hard and make luck happen for them.
I think that you're I think I do want to take out a little crystal of business, whatever, a gem here, which you sort of mentioned, which is you got your first job and then you said it happened again, and it was because of a referral. And I think the lesson is, but look at you, you're basically doing extremely good work. You said it's so, in my experience as well, getting the basics right, which you said, I'm punctual. I actually deliver the project when I'm going to deliver I do what I say I'm going to do. And obviously you did good work. And I'm sure the women, the female mentorship, I'm sure you were also, I'm not sure whether you were unusual that you were a woman coming up, but if you had a woman boss who wanted to help you, I think that also, that's great. I mean, I wish that should be obviously more prevalent, but I wouldn't underestimate the value. And it sounded like you were about to say that this happened again in my life later. And I know from working with you in Chilistore that referrals are a huge piece of your success, is because, you know, there's nothing stronger you can have the best marketing and lead gen and sales team in the world, but nothing is as strong as, hey, I've worked with Anna before and she delivers top quality.
And she's
and
rock
that
solid,
goes,
yeah.
right.
Yeah,
that's worth so much.
Right.
And in
You
fact,
are
there's
right. And that has played a part a lot. So a lot of my clients are referrals. Not all, but a lot. Yeah.
There's one other thing you mentioned, that you were studying, reading, working hard. You just in passing said you're at a women's networking event. And I think this idea of going to different events, if you've got a kind of what I say academic mindset in the sense of a learning mindset, maybe not academic, you're going to an event, you hear someone say something, you think that's interesting, it sticks in your mind because you're open to that input that's coming from different sources. Also, you mentioned your mother wanted you to be an academic or a teacher. Are your parents proud of you, or are they're sitting there, so when is she finally going to be a professor? And what went wrong with our little girl?
I think my father, before he passed away, he told me he was proud of me. I'm not sure about my mother. She went on and she herself had she has 3 different diplomas, 3 academic diplomas. So she's very academic. I don't know, to be honest, if she thinks, I still thinks that I should have gone into an academic. But you said something interesting that is so interesting. You said that that's true. I continue to learn. So I have mountains of books and I read mountains of books, and I listen to hours and hours of podcasts. So I'm always looking to learn and learn things that I don't know anything about it, and learn and listen to people that I absolutely disagree. Dislike.
Interesting. I would never do that.
I will, because I want to be learn how to be open, learn how to be compassionate, learn how to understand the other side. So I do that too.
Okay. Well, maybe that's a whole nother topic that I don't think we should get into, the list of the things that you listen to that you disagree with, but I don't think we need to go into that.
But what I might do actually, and I don't think we'll ask you to do it now because it'd take too long, but if you sent a list of the podcasts that you particularly recommend, we could put that in the show notes, just say here, or make a link to it, write a blog post, say here's, because who was it, Elon Musk, I saw a tweet, I didn't actually click on it, the 15 books that Elon Musk says you must read, and I, like you, I've got a Kindle, but I've got like so many unread books on my Kindle. If I bought them, it would just lengthen the list. But did you have time for any sports or any kind of like physical, like or games, or like chess or running or anything?
Yeah, so I do like sports a lot. I do like exercise a lot. One of the things I learned is that stress is actually something that happens to you physiologically in your body. And one of the things you should do is complete the stress cycle. So when you get stress at work, which could be many times a day, you will have a spike on adrenaline or any other hormones that will now sit in your body unless you get up and you could go for a long walk, or you could go for a run, or you could go for yoga, you could go for anything that's physical, so that stress cycle is completed, which is the same as animals do. You would see an animal in the wild, if it's maybe hunted by a lion and it escapes, animals will shake, and they are shaking off all of those hormones that they released. And we usually don't do that. So you're very stressed all day at work, and then you sit down to watch TV. So
that's interesting.
You don't complete that cycle. So you do need to go outside and do whatever it is that you need to do, because you need to have stamina, right? To run a company.
I think what Richard was going after, though, was competitiveness. Yes. Are you
very yes,
right?
very.
No, so like, and so anything in the history that would show, like, you need to win. Like, do you play games, and did you compete in sports?
I played in the volleyball team for my town. I played in the basketball and volleyball teams for my school. I love team sports, not running or competing by myself. And that was very helpful because having a company is a team sport.
And did you, when you were playing any kind of games with your little brothers or sisters, did you ever let them win, or was it more important that you won? And with you've got a kid now as well. Are you going to,
yes.
if you're playing?
No,
I
will let them win.
You
will let them win. You will let them win.
Not with my brother. No, not with my brother. We were very similar in age. Yes, we're very similar in age, and we were very competitive, and we were fight, and he was into kung fu, and I would fight him anyway. I didn't do any martial arts, but I would fight him anyway. And so,
real fighting.
And for a while, I was bigger and stronger. And
that's funny. That's demoralizing for the kung fu artist.
I know, he was small. Yeah, I was insanely competitive. Insanely competitive, Richard. Thanks for pointing that out. But
okay. Well, I mean, that's really thank you for sort of like sharing that, because it just sort of create. And I think what's every business has got customers, a process, a way of getting sales leads. It does something of value, but the background stories of the entrepreneurs. And we never had some. We had one other Brazilian, Renato from. I can't remember what's his company called. Nimzi, that's right. Renato, and we had one other. You're the second Brazilian we've had, but people come from these different worlds, and somehow, your childhood sounds very different to the childhood of a lot of people we've had on the show, and so it's really interesting. And then, as you were going through university and considering your first proper job, obviously you got your translation business on the side. You mentioned.
Sorry, but what did you study at university?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I did study language and literature, so I didn't finish. I am a dropout. I did because yes, I did do the.
Oh well, we have to reevaluate our business relationship.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't even know you didn't fill the form out right. I didn't know even on this podcast.
HR.
I did well. That matches my personality completely. I'm a quick starter. And quick starters are very comfortable with risk, and they tend to get very bored in university. So I did complete the first 3 years, which was the required curriculum. The fourth year was, now you need to do some course to make up credits. Like you could study the origin of the name of roads. And I was like, are you kidding me? I just don't want to do any of that. So I did the first 3 mandatory years, which I loved very much. And the fourth year, to just fill in with credits, I thought this is very boring. And at that point, I had the opportunity the first time I traveled, and you had asked before, Kimon. So the first time I traveled, I came to the UK.
How old are you now?
I was probably 20, something around, 20. And I came to stay 3 months, just perfect my English. And I ended up staying, I think, nearly a whole year, because I loved it so much. I do love the UK. I know it has its pros and cons like every other place, but I absolutely love the UK. I love the culture. And obviously I come from
British, it's in your blood.
Probably, yeah. So it felt easy, it felt right. But I went back because I had this thought that, I must finish this university course. I did go back for about a month, and I thought this is very boring. And I had a job at that point as well.
So I'm sure, sorry to interrupt, this must have been a sticking point with your mom, though. Not finishing university, if she was such a
she was disappointed.
Accolades focused.
Yeah. She was disappointed. My father thought a university teaches you about life and culture. He was, by formation, he was a lawyer, but all his life he was a journalist. So university for him was, well, that's what you do, right? That's
basic.
That's what everybody should do, and that's what you do, so you should do too. But yes, my mother was disappointed that I didn't finish, but at the same time, I also was doing so much that it wasn't like I was sitting at home. Right. At that point, I was working in PeopleSoft, which was became Oracle, was acquired by Oracle.
We used to work for PeopleSoft a long time ago, before the acquisition.
They were very nice, yeah. But doing some very complex software, logistics software. And that was, I think, my entrance to the translation industry to the translation world properly, because we were translating PeopleSoft Oracle software for Portuguese, for Brazilian Portuguese, without any dictionary, without any official names or anything. So a lot of the names, and that's funny because I'm joining the dots now. A lot of my time I would phone the universities and talk to professors to say, how do you think we should call this? Because it, you know, these
Right, you were creating the language
software, we're creating language, we're creating terms and terminology, and to this day there's still some terminology in use that was created at that point by companies that were translating ERP software and logistics software. And then after that, I had another transition job in a smaller company that got.
So you're just freelancing, employing. What's your status?
No,
at
that point, I think I can't really remember. I think I started as a contractor there, and I started. I thought, you know what, I had the company and I did this and I did that. And I thought, you know what, I remember thinking, I just want a job and I'm just going to sit and be a translator. And that lasted 2 weeks because the supervisor quit. And my boss, another woman, came to me and said, do you know anyone who could supervise all these people? And I was sort of doing it. I said, yeah, I can do it. And she said, all right, hired. And I thought she would interview other people, but she didn't give me the job.
That's so interesting. Can I just ask a bit about your economic situation, your relationship with money? Because I mean, I don't know what it sounded. I don't know whether it's a kind of middle-class household you grew up where, or you were short of money. And you're obviously having your own business when you're quite young. It might have been you were making significantly more doing that than was normal for like a student job in a bar or whatever. Because Brazil, the image I've got is quite an unequal society where there are a lot of quite poor people and there's a big middle class and then a few very rich people. And I don't know where you fit on that scale. And you know, sometimes when people come from a less advantaged background, you know, the motivation to make money is absolutely obvious because they just want to have a better life than they remember when they were a kid. And dropping out of university, it sounded like you were always busy, but were you looking for sort of stability or were you looking for more than stability? I mean, can you just, because you said then you put your hand up and said, I can, you know, I can do that. So there was obviously some ambition and hunger for something more than just a regular job.
Yeah, so no, I come from a middle class background. There was just enough every month. And I think I see what you're saying. It was important for me to make my own money, but it was more motivated by being independent. I left my parents' house very early. I think I was 17 or 18, and I already had a job to support myself. And in Brazil, you don't stay all day long in a university. There's no all day long courses usually because people need to work. So either courses are in the evening and you worked all day, or they're in the morning and you work the rest of the day, which I did. I worked afternoons, and I also was a teacher. I was an English teacher, came on like yourself. So I worked until very late and then had to be in university very early. I left my father's house with nothing, and then everything that I built was my own work. It was this need to be independent. It was this need to be out of there and be independent and not depend on anyone for myself. It was the same as when I arrived in Ireland. I didn't have anything.
Well, no, obviously, and then you went to the UK. I mean, you went to, I guess you saved up, you bought a ticket.
Yeah, no,
you went to the UK.
Thing my father gave me was a ticket to the UK. He gave me a return ticket, obviously. That'd be very cool.
Here's a one-way ticket.
My dear daughter, Anna, here is your one-way ticket to Australia.
Yeah, to Australia, to as far as possible. No, he did give me a return ticket, but I lost the return because I wanted to stay longer. Right. So the return tickets, then I bought it myself. But he did give me the ticket, and he did pay for my accommodation for the first 3 months. And then after that, I decided to stay, and I phoned them. There was still no mobile phone. So I phoned them from a payphone, and I said, I'm going to stay. And he said, are you sure? And I said, I'm sure, not being very sure, but I stayed anyway, and I had to provide for myself and then save and then buy the return tickets. It is, there is this need for stability, of course, but there is also this need for not depending on them or on anyone. So I think that was the real motivation. And then there's also this personality of hardworking since forever, and then
Right.
continue to be hardworking, which everything has a good side and a bad side. There's obviously the bad side of it, working
Well, it sounds like
yourself.
you were extremely productive. And so, I mean, I don't think money was actually like an issue for you because you were always working. I mean, it sounds like you were
No, it
working a lot.
wasn't.
So,
It wasn't. It's a bit of a privileged position to be able to say this, and I know, but it wasn't. One, because I worked very hard and I made money.
right.
Others, because if you're not afraid of risk, you can be a freelancer and be a contractor and make more money than if you are in employment, which is a safer thing, less anxiety prone. But if you're not afraid of risks, and I do remember, however, being listening to someone else give someone an advice that there was a freelancer woman, friend, and very anxious about being a freelancer, and a coach saying, it was a session that I was in it, saying, if you're going to be a freelancer, you need to have a little bit of faith in your hardworking, faith in the universe, faith that it will provide. Otherwise, you would drive yourself insane if your choice is to be a freelancer. You have to have some form of faith. And I also would add to that some form of hard work.
Yeah, I would say, and I would add a different word. I'd say hustle, because being a freelancer is, until you get established, is having a client base. And then you want to pick and choose and cherry pick the best clients that can give you the best work and the most stability. But you need to be out there. That's the worst part of being a freelancer, is that you need to, like, it sounds like in your case, I get the sense that you're just basically so solid and good and likable that you're getting these referrals. I'm not sure. Was there any hustle? Like, I needed the hustle. I didn't have the work. I needed to go and knock on doors and find somebody to give me some work, because it feels like you're just very much like, like you're just a rock solid person that, again, they're going to just give you more and more everywhere you go. No, but maybe it's not like that. I don't know.
No, it's a lot of hustle. Come on. I know people like my sister, my husband, they are lucky in life. Things come, or they attract, or they deserve as well. They're very good at what they do. I didn't feel I was a very lucky person. So I did knock on many doors. When I decided to stay in England, it was really hard. I didn't really have a job that would pay for accommodation and for food and for the school. So I had to knock on many, many doors, and it was the same with the freelancer thing. I mean, I had to knock. I couldn't. The other thing was, you shouldn't have all your eggs in that one basket. So I didn't stay only with McGraw-Hill. I did go and look for work in other publishing houses and other companies, so that I could always have more options. So you create options for yourself, right? So
I'm just going to dive in here, because this is so important that, basically Keeman's premise that you were so good at whatever you were doing that people sort of stuck with you. That was part of it, but also you were handling the process of making yourself wide open for rejection, because if you send 30 letters and 27 people don't reply, or you make 30 phone calls and 27 people put the phone down on you, that's just like dealing with rejection. And what you said is, and I wonder if it's modesty or just the mindset that you said.
No, it was very hard, very hard. Like the rejections were very hard, but that period was instrumental. I think it was really good to learn that, well, you are not the bee's knees, and you will get rejected. And if you're rejected, you have to get up and you have to try again, because after all, you have to eat and you have to pay rent.
Absolutely. And also as a leader, when you're trying to encourage some of the people in your team that they can do tough stuff, if you've done it yourself, you're totally credible, right? You can't tell someone, I can't pick up the phone. You say, well, I used to, or whatever it is. But
no, exactly, yeah.
So did you mentioned that you were just about to take us through your career path, that after 2 weeks your boss quit, and so you were put in charge of a team. Did you feel that you were sort of just naturally good at running a team, or was that something you'd done before because you were managing the freelancers? Because managing people is a different skill set than being good at something. I mean, it's a thing to be good at, but there are people who are not very good at doing stuff, who are good at getting other people to do stuff. And how do you see yourself in that context?
That's very important to me, managing people, because if you ask me what's the most important thing in a business, it's people. It's nothing else, it's people. Should I be an entrepreneur? Do you love people? Because if you hate humans, you should totally not be an entrepreneur.
And there are so many people
run a company.
There are so many people who are listening to that should consider whether the entrepreneurial route is for them.
Exactly. You have to love people. If you don't love people, you have to find someone who does and does it well. And I remember that first job, in the few months in, my boss calls me and says, you have to fire that person. And this was this huge, very gentle, but very big man, and everybody loves him. And she said, he's underperforming and you're going to fire him. And I was like, what? Wait, what? I never fired anyone. How do you fire someone? And so I pulled him into a room, right? He's older than me. He's much bigger than me. And everybody loves him because he was a lovely man. And I don't know what happened, but I decided to ask him, what's happening? Right? Because, you know, you're underperforming and people are not happy and you made some mistakes. And we ended up having a whole conversation about how his father was sick and he was thinking of getting married and things were hard and etc. So we had a whole conversation of what was affecting him and everything that was going wrong. I decided there and then, let's have a 2 weeks trial and let's see how this goes. And then it just improves immensely. I'm not going to say it will always improve, because one of the parts of dealing with people is at some point you'll have to fire people. And I have fired people.
This is a very interesting point. And I think firing people is a failure on both sides, usually, because people, and it's because of not expressing expectations and not communicating correctly. That's what I found. I've had lots of regret in firing people. Because of that, and you know, at some point you're not in a position where you can offer them that, let's say, second chance. But like, as you just pointed out, I don't think he was being correctly managed. I think somebody should have been giving him the feedback before that. Not all of a sudden because that's really the mistake we often make, is we just fire them, right? Without giving them, without the feedback loop. Like, it's much better. It's okay to fire people, but really it's not okay, in my opinion, just like ethically, if you haven't given them the feedback along the way that, look, you're not performing, look, this is your last chance, look, you know, I mean, because some people are going through shit, you don't know what's going on, and then like, it's like another shot, right? It's like, it's a snowball for them. They other things are going wrong, and then that results in them being fired, which is obviously the worst possible thing that could happen. So that's great that you avoided it. So I guess the story goes that you saved him. Basically, you saved the nice gentle bear.
Because it was possible. But I think that what you're saying is very important, because not only feedback, but you have to set the goals and the expectations from the start. And that's really important. And this relationship with this person that you're hiring starts on your first interview. So my interviews are, I ask people, what do you want from your life? What do you want from your work? And if the answer is, well, I don't know, then that's not good enough for me. You know, you need to have some form of mission. And I tell my team, and I think they're sick of hearing it, but I think everyone should work to a mission, not for a company, not for a person, which we usually do, but for a mission for yourself. What is the mission? What are you providing? Because work is to serve, and you are serving a need.
It's also I think that's so right, but it's also striking that when you were put in charge of this team, the company you were working for, it sounds like you hadn't had management training, because it's like, I'm in exactly the same shoes. You know, I not only did I have no training in management, but also I had no training in organization or budgeting or anything that you need to run a business. And I nearly had a breakdown around mid-1990s where I was just getting more and more overloaded, and I just didn't have the tools and experience to do what I was doing. So I was really learning by doing. But, you know, if it's quite odd you're put in charge of a team and weren't told that you should be having like one-on-ones and feedback. And
so common. Richard, like my frustration is how I can't say for other industries. I do have some visibility in other industries, but in the transition industry, we never, most of the work is done by the project managers, and we don't cherish them enough. We don't train them enough. We promote people without asking them even, do you like humans? Like, nobody asks them. If they said no, don't promote them to manage people. And a lot of the time, people spend very long time in their careers. And I'm talking about 20 years, 25 years in which they don't manage people. And then suddenly, because they've been here long enough, we're just going to promote you. And now you're managing 10 people. And they were never told how to manage people. They were never shown. And there was never a coaching or a course or anything like that. So if you want to manage people, you have to manage yourself first. If you want to be an entrepreneur, you know to very radically know yourself, because you will bring a dynamic to a company that's based on your family dynamics. That's very common. So if you had certain family dynamic at home, you would bring that, you will look for that. If you have a co-founder, at some point you will be projecting things onto each other. You will be not getting along, especially if at the beginning you complemented each other. So you have the very creative person and you have the very diligent person, and you complement each other because that's what you should have in a company. You need to have the creative, the strategic, the thinking, but you also need to have the people who are paying the taxes and paying the electricity bill and managing everything around. And then at some point you might start not to get along because you are, after all, you're the opposite, and you are opposite with your sibling at home, or you had a conflict with your parents, and you're looking for that again. So you need to radically know yourself so you don't bring that kind of stuff into your company or with other people that you're managing. Right?
There's so much of value here for people who are either you're in business and not experienced or contemplating it. And I want to focus on just firing people. That Keeman talked about how it's a failure on both sides, and you were talking about being a people person. Do you think that a manager can be like a Mr. or Ms. Nice Guy? Because like it's not a nice thing to fire people. And I remember how stressed I was the first time I had to fire someone. I literally didn't sleep the night before. I had no experience, and I was maybe similar sort of age, 24, 25, and the guy had done really bad things, and it wasn't marginal. He was stealing stuff, and he was meant to be doing direct mailings, and he couldn't be bothered to do the address label, so he's chucking them in the bin. You know, that's not good behavior. But do you think you have to? Can you be a nice manager, or do you sometimes have to be really tough?
You have to be both. So I like very much the servant leadership methodology, which is you are at service to the people who work at the company. You are at the service to the company itself, to your customers. So you have to be a coach, you have to be a mentor, you have to be a friend. However, from experience, I know you have to be a leader. You need to be there to make the difficult decisions. It's not anybody else, it's you. And when the proverbial whatever hits the fan, you need to take the beating. Be there, take the beating. Be the leader, take a responsibility for a lot of whatever you said, Kimon, I liked very much. If you're firing someone, where was your responsibility in that? And
I always think about that.
Exactly.
I always think about the failure of the organization. It's the organization. It's always about the failure of the person, but it's so clearly the failure of the organization. And even as you said, it's even in the hiring process, right? I mean, it starts in the hiring. Maybe you made a mistake. There's a failure. The system broke down basically if you have to fire somebody. But unfortunately, the onus or whatever, the focus is always on, oh, bad employee, and that's just not the case.
No, and there was a point in which maybe a good employee or perfect for that position in which things started to go wrong. I mean, you can maybe hire someone and it's brilliant for them, it's great for you, and at some point something changes. And why did you not address that at the moment that changed? It's very likely that you did realize that's unusual, that's an unusual attitude, that's an unusual delay, that's an unusual problem. And if you address, and it could be just one line, what's going on, everything okay? You need to create mechanisms in the company. One of the things that I think is that we implemented points, and it's helpful, It's get someone else from a different group to mentor or just talk to that other person.
Yeah,
Not from
I
inside
think,
the group, not
I
her
think this is a
manager,
really, I think this is
not
a
her
good
colleague.
transition. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm listening to all this, and you know, we get to Chilistore, the company that you founded that actually was, I guess, your most successful whatever business so far. And so obviously I know this company in depth. We ended up buying the company, and that comes through the way you've met, like your management of people is clearly exception. In fact, our obviously, I don't want to say obviously, but Argos is a much bigger company than Chilistore, and I think we have a lot that we can learn from Chilistore actually, in terms of the way you manage people and stuff like that. So maybe this is a good segue if we can sort of fast forward, or at least get us to where, because I really want to talk a little bit about your, because that's your big, right? Isn't that your big entrepreneurial journey is in this, is in Chilistore? Like, can you, let's get to, how did you set this up? How did you get to Ireland? How did you set it up? And
where did you get the idea? Where did you get the idea
yeah.
from? So give us the now in this business entrepreneurship. Tell us about the business.
Yes,
we finally got there.
Yeah. So I was in the last 15, 20 years of my career. Then I fluctuated, or I was moved towards the quality aspect of translation very much, and everything that goes into it, like the glossary, the terminology, the guidelines, the creative brief, whatever it is. And I started to specialize in that, and I obviously worked very hard at it. My hypervigilance worked very well at checking quality, but I also grew very frustrated because the way, I don't know about other industries, but the way translation industry works with quality is pretty much a checkpoint, a pass and fail at some point at the very last minute before you publish a software or you publish a campaign or a web page, a checkpoint. Let's see if the quality is good at this point. And it's a pass or it's a fail. Then you have to fix everything. And that's the end of it. Nobody really knows or goes upstream or downstream and say, let's follow up and do this in a better, more holistic way, because this checkpoint is actually just one step in a very long process. That is the process of quality. And one of my clients said, you do this so well and you're so interested in quality. Do you not want to take why don't you take all of the work we have in the company here for other languages and everything else? And it was a bit of a shock.
Sorry, now you're here as a freelancer. You're a freelancer now.
No, I was a contractor in a company, and I was managing
you're a contract. Okay.
Things related to quality and quality. I created a terminology.
And can you share
portal.
Which company this is?
That was Symantec. It's a company that
a tiny little company.
Exists.
Tiny little
Yeah, it was massive.
Company.
Yes, it was very big.
Yes. Symantec does antivirus software. Is that right? Or...
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And I was asked, why aren't you not incorporated? I mean, why you do this so well? Why don't you do this? Also, as a woman, that encouraged me. And you know what? It's very scary for you to say, should I open a company and then service such a big client like this one? It wasn't like just a book or a Mickey Mouse client. This was a massive client. And I remember thinking about it very carefully. And then I came to Guy Kawasaki's Art of the Start, the book Art of the Start. And what he said was, here are the reasons you should open a company. You know, none of them are, I'm going to be very rich. You know, I want to be very rich. There are other ways. Go and learn about cryptocurrency if you want to be very rich. Don't open a company because it's a very painful endeavor. And one of the things he said is, if open a company to right a wrong, and that got stuck to me. It was very shocking. And I said, he's right. He's totally right. And what I felt was compelled. I'm very interesting always on the reasons why someone wants to be an entrepreneur and open a company. For me, it was a vision. I was compelled to it. It was like a quest. I must go and I must do this. And we must do this.
I must right this wrong. I
must right this wrong.
I think that needs to be. I hope you have it. Is it somewhere in the to right or wrong. That should be the to right or wrong. That should be the tagline of Chilistore. To right or wrong. I think we need to talk to the marketing department.
No, that's not nice.
But Anna, I have to say that this is a fantastic story. But also, just to challenge you, you already had a client, and like I'm literally in the last 4 days, I've got several people with like they're amazing and to me extremely risky business ideas, and they're looking for funding and they don't have any clients. And you know, to kick off with a company like Symantec saying, please do this for us, and obviously it's still risky, but it's not, I mean, you're obviously quite a thoughtful, rational person. It's not like pray and play and pray. You've got a, or whatever it is, spray and pray. You've got a client there waiting for you.
Yes, but yes and no, because see, what happened was then my husband helped me co-found the company. He was a mentor. He was a Kieran. I have a lot to thank him because he taught me a lot. He didn't work in the business. He has his very own successful career, but he mentored us a lot. And my friend Martha as well, Martha Boyer, believed in this plan. And it was a bit risky because both I left my career before, so I didn't know if that was going to work. And then what was difficult was we were going to create a business model a bit from the start. The translation industry paid per word at that point. I decided that we're going to be charging just per hour, so we never even set up a rate per word with any clients, always per hour, because if you're going to go to a piece of content and say, I'm going to inject the quality here that's missing, it might take me 10 minutes, it might take me an hour, it might take me 2 hours. And the more we improve this process, the less you're going to pay. So it was also beneficial for the client. So it would take less if you let us improve this holistically. So there weren't really roadmaps or frameworks. And because we wanted to right or wrong and do it differently, there you go, we had to do things differently. At that point, for instance, one of the frustrations was there was this checkpoint, there's a pass, there's a fail. There was never feedback given back to anyone upstream, even the translator. That person didn't get a proper discussion or a feedback or a voice.
There was no feedback loop.
Notoriously, hidden. So the very important for me, for the company, was what kind of culture are we? And at the time, my husband was a Scrum Master. I eventually became a Scrum Master as well. We were very involved with agile methodologies, and we created a company based on collaboration, transparency, and flexibility, or the Agile Manifesto. And it had to be radical transparency, radical collaboration, and radical flexibility, in which you say, and to this day, clients come and say, I had this crazy idea. We'd say more, we will do it for you. And collaboration, in which we only work directly with freelancers, and those freelancers are in every email. There's no blind copy in our company. It's an unspoken rule, but there's no blind copy. Clients know who their translators who work with us are, and we had a very, very long road convincing the translation vendors that were doing the translation for those clients that we need to know who these translators are. And we had some obviously very comical and ridiculous meetings with people who were put in a meeting. Let's talk to the Czech translator, and the person who shows up at the meeting is Bulgarian. No, I'm not a Czech person, I'm Bulgarian. And we also had these situations in which we're going to talk to the Turkish translator. So that translation vendor connects us to one person who connects to another company, who connects to another company. And after 5 tries, we get to the translator herself. And we only get to know her first name. So that's not transparency, right? That's a shame. So we had a very long road to fight against the way things were being done. And one of the things that I think, if I could give an advice to an entrepreneur just starting, is don't go with the ways, this is the way we always done things, you know, forbid this thing of, oh, this is how we always done it. This is the software we always worked. This is the system we always followed. So don't just break all of that and don't go with that at all. And we had to fight very hard for the transparency. We had to fight very hard to find a framework for that, because things only work really in a framework, and maybe that's my discipline mind. We need to have a framework for this communication to happen. Also, the tools weren't really there. What really improved our lives were Slack. I've worked at Microsoft and I love Microsoft, but Skype is not a chat tool. It was very frustrating. And Slack really changed our lives. We are in contact with everybody now all the time, which is essential for the transparency and the collaboration.
I love the fact you quoted Guy Kawasaki, and he's got a famous bit of his Art of the Start talk where he talks about the 30-20-10 rule, about how PowerPoint presentations should always be in 30-point bold because you can't write sentences, so you can only write bullet points, which means that you have to know your material.
You know, you have to think that.
He also says that people you're pitching to will be old men with glasses like me, so they won't be able to read smaller fonts. But he also said if you read your slides, then the audience are going to think you're an idiot because they can read faster than you speak. And they're going to read ahead. And we'll certainly share a link to that. And I just, obviously you kicked off with Symantec, but maybe can you talk about your second client, like, because you're obviously, you're taking a risk, and it is absolutely compelling.
Sorry, Richard, can I ask, what year is it? I just want to, I've lost track. What year is it? Where are we?
That was 10 years ago. That's 2011.
2011.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because you were, I mean, I just want to give you, just because you went down pretty technical, a little bit technical for the people that don't know the translation industry. I just wanted to summarize one thing. What Anna was doing, which just it blows me away, actually, is you were actually disrupting. You were actually disrupting.
It had to be disrupted.
She was doing, yes, of course. Yeah. It still has to be disrupted, though. She's 10 years ago. What I'm saying is I'm listening to this conversation. It's hard, again, for those of you in the translation industry, you'll know what I'm talking about. For those of you not in, just take my word for it. But like, we still haven't disrupted this today. And she's right. And what Anna started doing 10 years ago is the right route. And she, and we're still even not there today, but it's just very impressive. I mean, that you manage some tiny little company, and that you actually are, it is a big deal. I just want to, it is a bigger deal than it sounds like. In this podcast, is what she did. It's a much bigger deal than what it sounds like. Oh yeah, I tried to make them go by the hour. Oh yeah, I tried to make them be transparent. That stuff, just even today, they don't do it. Today,
no, they don't do it. It still is.
It's massive. It's a huge. It's difficult. Very impressive. I just want to say it's a very impressive thing, because also it's not like Anna's coming. Anna's a tiny company, and she's talking to big. But the beauty of what you're doing is you have the pocketbook behind you, because you have the big company who pays these other people in the life cycle their money. So if you can convince the pocketbook, Symantec, or the big client, we're going to do it this way now, then you can maybe get some of these disruption that you want to do.
And possibly you've never heard this analogy, but do you see how what you're doing is similar to machine vision in manufacturing? Because you might not have heard that analogy, but when I had a business, I used to run and still have a major shareholder of a company that sold machine vision technology into production environments. And historically, quality control would be right at the end of the process. Did everything work? And the classic example might be an old Nokia mobile phone. And if the green bit had come off the green on button, then the whole phone would fail. Yeah. And it would just be scrapped. And if you could put cameras looking at everything all the way along that could sort of look at 50 buttons a second, I mean, this is ultra high speed machines. If anything went wrong at any stage, they would flick it off the line. So you would no longer add value after the thing had gone wrong. And this idea of having checkpoints at every stage to say, is it good? And then obviously the feedback, if it had gone wrong, why has it gone wrong? It's just this idea of product quality control as a productivity enhancement, as opposed to quality control, just can we ship, is hugely valuable, because if your process works, every single time later will be higher quality. So you're actually cutting, it seems expensive, but you're cutting costs in the long run.
You totally are, and you can get to a point where you trust your whole ecosystem. The thing with the difference between the manufacturing is that because there's so many human interactions, the quality system in a translation ecosystem, it's actually to be technical, a complex adaptive system, which is a network of interactions between different parts, and even ensuring the quality of one part, say one person here, doesn't ensure that the whole system is going to produce quality at the end. So it's a very delicate, complicated balance, and you need to be very diligent with every step of the way. We're still very long way to go. Kimon knows. You're still kind of work in silos. So for instance, the software developers producing the software have no concern about this is going to be translated in 40 languages. It's not their problem, but it should be their problem because they are part of this whole system that
and it comes back to them. It actually ends up coming back to them, and then they have to rewrite and internationalize and all this other stuff. And
exactly, it's very hard
quality
work,
at source. I mean, it's quality at source. Basically,
it's holistic.
To get the quality. Yeah.
You need to involve. You need to involve as many people as are part of this system. You need to also encourage this, the continuous learning, the retrospectives, the inspect and adapt, which is part of the agile methodology. So you inspect, is it good? No. Did it work? No. So we're not going to do this again. One of the things we do a lot in the translation industry is it working? No. Sure. Okay. We'll look at this again in 10 years, because I don't really want to go through this. So you have to completely stop, and we're going to try something else because this is not really working.
Anna, take us through. This is your first client. Take us through the journey. How did you build this company up, and then ultimately, what made you decide to sell it?
Yeah, yes, great questions. It was slow, Kimon. So if I look back, I think it was slow. The company was always profitable, but not very profitable. In the first year, I paid everybody's salaries, but I didn't pay my own. And my husband wasn't very happy with that. He was part of the company with his consultancy service. So there were months in which his consultancy service was what allowed us to pay our salaries and pay everybody. So it is tough anyway. It's always going to be tough. I think it was slow because we are 10 years in. I think we've been very successful and very profitable in terms of profitability in the past probably 3-4 years. So it did take us quite a long time to get this business model right, to get the framework right, to say this is not working, let's do it differently. This doesn't work without this, and what should we do here?
But how did you get all the clients?
Yes, but the funny thing about my other clients is that we are usually called in or when things have gone wrong, and people don't know why things have gone wrong. So a lot of my journey with my clients is explaining to them what we do, what looks like you need, what we could be doing, what results we should get. So buying translation is a little bit easier. You could go to a translation agency and says, I need this translated in whatever European languages. Translation is translation. But when they need our services, it's usually, there's a lot of noise. A lot of clients call it noise. So local markets are saying, I can't sell this product, it's horrendous. Or there's a lot of complaints from customers, or there's a lot of internal complaints from people who speak the language, or just there's a lot of people quitting because I can't work in here anymore. This is ridiculous. So we are usually called in to solve problems, which I love it, which is lovely.
Yeah, Anna, but
how we got clients, right?
Yeah, well, because one of them, there's many things attractive about your company when we were looking to buy it, but one of the things is you had this very impressive client list, very small company with a very impressive client list. So how did you get all these clients?
I would say one tip for anyone starting: show up. That's it. Show up, right? Yes, show up. Go to conferences, go to industry events, talk to people, show up. And sometimes you don't know what to do. What am I going to do with my life? And showing up is the best advice I have for anyone. That little thing over there interests me. I wonder if I could, get a business out of this event here, or this contacting this person here. So showing up was a big one. Also, our existing clients referring us. Some clients had worked with me, not with my company, but with me, and then hire me, and then ends up, loving the company because we have an amazing team of people. So one of the things that I think our mark of success for me is that this is a good company with good people doing good by their clients. And the word spread really more than any sales activities, because we didn't have sales activities. I closed every sale.
Of course.
So you were the sales activity.
I'm
Absolutely.
the salesperson. Yes. So I closed.
Oh,
every
I knew
sales.
that the day I met her. I wanted her
ever
for the
had.
clients.
Yes.
And there's a lesson here, because for anyone listening, Anna doesn't come across as a sort of stereotypical salesperson, and usually
I'm
the
not
best
a salesperson.
right.
Oh yes,
But-
you
but-
are.
totally
Oh yes, you are.
and I said she doesn't come across. All these statements are true, but just different ways of looking at the same thing. The point I'm trying to make is that the people who are really good at sales aren't stereotypical salespeople. They listen and they think, and they gain the confidence of their clients because they know their shit. And clearly, these three things were true. And although you said you're not, you're being out there, you're showing up. So you're doing, in fact, a version of the hustle, which is being in the right room where you can get lucky because you talk to 3 or 4 people who might have the problem you can solve.
Yeah. So, and then another little nugget of advice: if you have your own company, it's very lonely usually if you're running a company, because you have to make a lot of decisions. And like you said, Richard, you didn't sleep overnight when you had to fire someone. When you're firing someone, you don't have a team of people firing someone. It's usually you are firing someone, or you are making the decisions, or you are worrying about invoices that weren't paid or problems that were reported. So I'd say go after a network of business people, women in business, or Entrepreneurs Anonymous. They're in Dublin. They meet at the
Entrepreneurs
pub.
Anonymous.
Yes, and they meet face to face in the pub, which is lovely. So create this connection with people, network, if you want to call it. But I'd say a network is nothing if you don't create the connections. So the real connections with people are important. I also think it was our honesty that got us referrals from other clients. So we would go and say to a client, I see you want to spend a lot of money on this, but no, don't. What? Yeah, no, that's not necessary. That's not the way to do it. Let's fix the problem upstream so you don't have to spend rivers of money down here. Or we had a client that had about 4 steps and a month to create any update to a glossary, right? And we said, no, let's cut out all of these steps. What, are you crazy? Yeah, well, you're going to make less money by cutting out all of the 4 steps. I said, yes, but it's going to be more efficient. You're going to pay less. And this money that you're not going to spend here, how about we spend it over here in this thing that is necessary? So we were very honest. And I think we offered a lot of consultancy simply because we absolutely, I love what I do. And I think my team also loves what they do. And they don't want to do things just for let's make money or that's the way we always did that.
You're making things better. You're righting a wrong.
Yeah, and you're right, and you're a really high value added consultant, because a lot of consulting is yada yada, same old stuff. But this is actually telling people stuff they didn't know that can help improve their core business. And this,
and we never lost a single client. We actually fired a client once.
That's a very important thing.
We thought we were in good fit. We thought that, look, this is driving you crazy. This is driving us crazy. I don't think that's what you need. And funnily enough, that localization department for that client was dissolved about a year after we said, I don't think this is working. And I don't think we are working for you.
If anyone listening to this is ever fired by Chilistore, that's a bad sign.
I'm not sure how you did it. And the funny thing is, I'm 90% sure we fired the same client. And we just raised the prices. I mean, or didn't decrease the prices. I can't remember. It was something. You don't actually fire a client ever. You just say, you know what, we need to add 10% because of this, and that usually takes care of it.
I think we did fire that client.
You need to be tough, Keeman. You need to learn to be tough, Keeman.
No, because it's always because in our case, generally we're only firing a client because they're just unprofitable. basically. I mean, why do you fire a client ever? I mean, it's
Because
just
there are reasons. There are reasons.
I mean,
but
ethical. Okay, I
yeah.
haven't come across those ethical reasons yet. So then you maybe do.
Well, you told me about a client from America, Kim. This was 15 years ago, where you said that all incoming emails were going to go to the spam filter. I could name them, but it would be unprofessional. It's a major financial institution. You sent all their incoming emails to spam, and you got so annoyed with them. Yeah.
I can't remember. And anyway, this is about Anna. And by the way, we got to be conscious of time here.
Yes,
let's
exactly.
Let's try to get, because I think we
Right.
have a
So
lot
we
of
get
some
to
more
the,
interesting stuff.
to the
Let's
point
talk
where
about
you asked
why you would exit. But then after that, I think we need to talk about lessons learned. I think you have a lot of stuff.
Let's go into rapid fire. Kim and I need to zip it.
Zip it, yeah.
Well, I don't think it's us.
So why? Because you have to be, again, know yourself, be very self-conscious. The company grew, it was profitable, the model works, it's doing good work. I needed to get out of my own way because I was the one in the way. I needed to have a sales department, I needed to have more executives, I needed to have a C-suite. And then I wanted also, like I said, it's very lonely if you have your own company and expand it, it's just yourself or just the two of you, two co-founders. It can get very lonely, and your way of doing things are not always forever the perfect way of doing things. I'm sure that I always want to know people who come and say, I don't think that's what we should be doing. You know, it's exciting to hear, oh, right, there's a new way of doing things. And the other thing, back to the personal history. So I am in my home. I have two very childish parents. I'm making all the decisions. So again, I'm in this company, I'm making all the decisions, most of the decisions, and I needed for this company to grow, to get out of the way of this company. At some point, you need to understand a company is an entity that provides people with to pay their mortgage, to pay their rent, to put food on the table. You have a responsibility that entity flourishes. It's not about, it should never be about anyone's ego. So one of the things that I work towards is the more you learn about yourself, you might say, well, the more inflated you are, like a balloon. Well, a balloon, what happens to a balloon, right? You have to get out of your own way. You have to be, to work towards less ego. If you founded a company because you want to be the big kahuna, the big CEO, that's not a good reason. That company is not going to profit from that or flourish from that. I felt that I wanted to find a group of people like-minded, and I loved Argus because their attention to quality, and quality is in innovation. They have a whole department with like 25 people working for quality and innovation. Who can claim that, right? We work with bigger translation vendors that have not one single person dedicated to quality. And I was really, really impressed. And I thought, okay, I found my tribe of people to work with me, right?
You said something that there's no question about, and I'm, obviously we can make this a promo of a love fest of how awesome we are together and stuff like that. But I would like to focus on, you said something really important there. And this is one of my true beliefs of entrepreneurship, is that the biggest barrier to growth and to becoming a successful company is the entrepreneur themselves. If you can't get out of the way, you are the bottleneck. You are the bottleneck. Now, you are, obviously, you sold your company. There's different ways to do that. You went this route, but like another route would be like, you'd have to invest a whole bunch of money. You'd have to get these people who are going to manage it, so you could actually, work on the business and not in the business. Clearly, you recognize that, and I think it's like, listening to you, I'm not sure, Richard, what's but like this, I think Anna said it from the very beginning, self-awareness, but it's come through the whole way. And it's actually so valuable and so important in entrepreneurship, because like, that's what allows you to actually, you keep going further and further and further, thanks to that, actually.
Yeah, one of the things you need to learn is also, what are you not good at? Richard said, I don't come across as a salesperson. I'm not a salesperson, and we have hired our sales director. And I'm so excited for her to start in October, my new sales director, but also I'm so fearful because I wanted to say, you're doing like this? Are you crazy? I just want to looking forward to hear that. What, you're doing what?
No, I want to jump in here because I think that I'm going to write a blog post. I don't know when, but I'm going to write a blog post on this. There are so many lessons because I do talks and stuff to do with teaching entrepreneurship, and there's a lot I've heard here which I know is true, but I haven't heard said in exactly the same way. But this business of getting out of the way and the entrepreneur being a barrier is true. But this is true of successful entrepreneurs, that, you know, if someone hasn't got the chops to actually build an organization that works, you know, probably they need either to stop handing over something that doesn't work, isn't going to work. So you, and this is true of both of you, both built successful companies at different scales. And, you know, you need to be good at something, building an organization that creates value, and then being open to outside knowledge, open to new ways of doing things for your own organization. It's so ironic. You're consulting to clients about how they should change their processes, but you're also feeling the need to have someone come in and look at your processes and say there's a different way of doing sales. But don't make it worse. You have to have some confidence in what you've done so far, that your new director of sales, I hope, is going to listen to what you did and keep the best bits.
And to think about it, you and I almost did exactly the same thing, just differently, right? We both got out of the way. I mean, you're still obviously running the thing, but you let go of a lot of the stuff on top, you know, and you know, obviously you're still deeply involved in everything, but you're getting that feedback, you're getting that thing. You know, I hired a CEO basically. I also got it, like you just need to be. We did exactly the same, differently, but we did it pretty much the same exact thing actually.
Yeah.
So we got out of we allowed the organization to continue to go forward, and also really what spoke to me is your thing, because Richard knows this about me as well, is the thing about ego. I think, we talked about bottleneck, and maybe the ego is the bottleneck. The ego is a huge problem.
It is.
In the entrepreneur, huge. Me.
Yes,
Why?
I know better. I know what I'm doing. I've always done this way. We've always done this way. Yeah, that's a big problem. One of the things we encourage the team, because it does need to permeate the whole culture, is try. If it works, tell me about it. If it doesn't, just drop it, you know. Try something new, try a new tool, try a new system, try a new person, try a new way of working, try working from midnight to 5. See, you know, if it works, brilliant. Let's see if it works for everybody else. If it doesn't, it's fine. Drop it. Fail.
Very much conscious of time here, because this has been great, and I really think that from a sort of entrepreneurial learning point of view, this is no insult to our other interviewees, other guests, but this has been a great one. Is there anything you haven't shared in terms of lessons you've learned on your journey? Because you've covered a lot.
You have. Is
there anything we haven't covered you'd like to share before we move towards wrapping up?
Yes, I would say, again, if you are an entrepreneur, if you're running a company, you need to learn about yourself. So read books. I love the book called Reboot from Jerry Colonna. If you read that book and you feel very uncomfortable, then there's a lot of stuff that you need to learn, and you need to think about it. So get to learn, read books, connect, talk to other people. Like your failures are bound to be the same failures as other people. But I was going to say, one of the things that was important lesson for me is challenge your story about money. So money is a story anyway that we tell each other, and we agree to give value to that piece of, like,
Sapiens.
It's not even a piece of paper.
Sapiens.
Now.
Sapiens. Have you read Sapiens?
Yes.
That's from
yes,
Sapiens.
Exactly. Yeah, money is a story, but it is a story, right? And he says it very well. It's a story we tell each other. But I'd go further. So, what is your feelings and your position towards money, and that you learned from your parents? So go back and think, how was money used in your household? Was it a bargaining thing? Was it a power thing? What were your parents or whoever raised you view of money, relationship with money, and start to break that down, because a company needs to be profitable. If you're losing money, stop. If you're going to remortgage your house, don't. So you need to focus on the most important. It needs to be profitable. It needs to pay your salary. It needs to pay everybody's salary. So is that because you don't know how to deal with money? Money carries a lot of weight. It carries a lot of emotional weight for you. You need to get past that. So one of the things that I love is play Monopoly. How do you feel? You know, usually people play Monopoly who have a lot of problems and taboos with money. They play Monopoly. They want to be really rich, and they want to be the one to win. And then it's the same thing. It's a game, learn about it, learn well so you're not anxious about it, and then challenge all of your conceptions about it, because there probably are misconceptions.
I totally agree with that. I say two things about that, and Richard knows this very well. One is that if your business isn't making money, it's a hobby. It's not a business.
And so it's
and
expensive
so
hobby.
Call it what it is, but it's a hobby. So yeah, I think that's I totally agree. I totally agree with that. And money, unfortunately, is the scorecard of business. It's not the end result. But it is the measure of how successful your business is. There is no other way to measure it. I mean, unless you're a foundation that's doing, you could be a charity, and the goal is to actually distribute as much money as possible, to be as efficient as possible. But generally, in a privately owned business, the scorecard is money, and success is often measured like that. And as you said, it's a game. I mean, I do agree with that.
It's a story,
completely.
It's a game, and don't let it get it in your own way. And my last word is going to be, a lot of the times where you lose is inside your head. So your misconceptions about yourself. Oh, it's going to be hard to get a loan. It's going to be hard to get that client. So you're already lost in your head. You didn't even leave the house, but in your head, you believe nobody's going to hire me because I'm a woman, or because I don't have a university degree, or because I'm a Latin person, or because I'm in a foreigner country. I think we all challenged these misconceptions. We were foreigners in other countries, and we went and we did it. But a lot of the time I could hear myself losing inside my head already. So I limited myself before I went and tried, because if you believe that you're not going to get it, you're already lost. It's already a lost battle. So
that's so hard for me to believe. That's so hard for me to believe. You seem like such a self-assured, self-confident person. That
no, come on, I'm a woman. Do you think it's easy? And I'm a foreigner. Do you think that's easy?
I know, but you seem so I guess it's just perseverance. It's just grunting your way through.
Yeah, so
forcing yourself through.
I had a big breakthrough once when I realized that there was a voice inside my head saying, oh, you're a woman, you're a foreigner, you're not white, you didn't finish university, are you crazy? So all of these things were telling me that I wasn't going to succeed ever. And then I realized, wow, I fought a whole battle inside my head and I lost it. That's just
I think we could carry on for another half hour, another hour, and it'd still be interesting. But we need to wrap up. That idea of sometimes individual insights, a change of mindset, can be a liberation. And maybe for some people listening, I hope this podcast can sow some seeds to look at things afresh, because there's a lifetime of experience to learn from this single conversation. So. Well, I'd like to thank you very much, Anna, for coming on the show. And
Thank you for having me.
Do you want to do the traditional?
I'll do the traditional wrap up. So thanks everybody who took what are we talking about here, Richard? We're on an hour and a half. What are we looking at here? And for whatever the significant portion of time to listen to this, thank you. So you've obviously listened for an hour and a half. Thank you for your attention and your time. It's obviously valuable. Thanks to my daughter, Magda Fantakidis, that does the graphic design and the video editing for this. If you ever need top quality video editor, magdafantakidis.com or whatever I'm joking, whatever. Does a little sales pitch for my daughter. Magda Buishkost for PR and promotion. She's an intern. I keep saying she's 17, maybe she's turned 18 by now. She's still very young and she does very impressive things at that age. Obviously everybody at MBN who does the technical sound editing to get this out there on all the podcast platforms. If you like this, please subscribe, like, love, click, whatever you do on social media. Do that on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts, or share and comment. And Anna, I've known you for a while now, but I learned a lot about you today. And
now you know a little more.
Really thanks for agreeing to do this. And I think your story is interesting. You're a fascinating person. I'm so lucky to be in business with you, and I'm so happy. And I just know that we're gonna do, it's just the beginning actually, because this is just the next step is starting now. And I just know that have a huge future at Argos, and we have a huge future together, basically. So
Thank
thanks.
you. We'll do great things.